services are not meant to make money.
Need a better healthcare system, tax scheme that helps the poor,
Education that grooms our kids.
A compassionate Singapore.
Progress Singapore. This is our party. Progress Singapore. Or simply PSP. Progress Singapore. It's for you and me. For country, for people.
Without further ado, I shall hand over to Mr. Stephen E., our moderator for this evening's session. Stephen, over to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we are pleased to have with us Dr. Ang Yong Guan to talk on the topic coping with stress in the current COVID-19 climate. Dr. Ang is a psychiatrist. Before setting up his clinic at Paragon Medical Center, he was with the SAF for 23 years, rising to the rank of colonel. Besides his clinical work, Dr. Ang has devoted 30 years to grassroots and community work. He was the president of the Singapore Psychiatry Association and the chairman of the chapter of Psychiatrists, Singapore Academy of Medicine. Dr. Ang was also actively involved in championing for the mentally ill by forming the Action Group for Mental Illness in 2004. He was also appointed to serve in the National Council on Problem Gambling and a panel of medical experts subordinate courts. You may subscribe to Dr. Ang's social media platform to hear the latest news from him at www.angyongguan.com. Dr. Ang will give an introduction and talk on the topic for the first part of this evening session. If you have any questions to ask Dr. Ang, you may type the questions in the Q&A, while I try to moderate the questions for Dr. Ang to reply after his talk. I shall now hand over to Dr. Ang.
Thank you, Stephen. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this webinar. The focus today will be on coping with stress in the current climate. Okay, let me open the slides. Coping with stress in the current COVID-19 climate. Now, let's begin with the concept of stress. What is stress? We know stress is about tension, emotional tension. And stress can also produce physical issues as well. So stress, in fact, is a fact of life, but don't make it a way of life. We all, every day when we wake up, when we go to work or when we go to school or when we work, when we are schooling, we face tremendous pressure and stress. So it's a fact of life. In fact, in this modern world, with modern technology, we are always confronted with a stressful situation. Whether you like it or not, the Facebook, social media, YouTube, even your WhatsApp, your email, all constantly are bombarding you with messages. And we have difficulty trying to cope with these various inputs into our mind. So it is very hard to say, forget about stress. Stress will never go away. It's a fact of life. But please don't make it a way of life. The sooner we deal with stress, the sooner we are able to cope, the sooner we learn skills to handle stress, the better we are. So tonight, I'm going to help you deal with stress using a method. And that method I'll review later. So let's talk a bit about stress. There are 4 S's of stress. The first is the stress source. What is causing stress? What is the event, the issue, or sometimes the person causing you stress? And then the situation you are in. At the moment, we are in a COVID-19 situation. the circuit breaker is definitely a departure from the norm. And therefore, it's an unusual situation. We are facing an unusual situation. We're not used to the situation, and we got to adjust, adapt to the situation. Number 3 is support. Even though we are facing the stressors, if we have good support from family members, from friends, and for those who are religious, from your temple, church group, or your mosque, all these constitute support. And finally, the self. The self is critical in handling stress. The self, what kind of a person are you? Your personality, your approach, your philosophy of life. All these will determine whether you deal with the stressors well or not. Now, let's dwell a bit on the self. If you are a worrier, if you are a perfectionist, if you are afraid of failure, you always want to do well, and you always seek external validation. You want people to praise you, think well of you, and you are afraid of making mistakes because you don't want to make mistakes and be embarrassed by it. And you are the type who don't learn well from mistakes. If you are like that and you are a pessimist, you are going to have problem facing with stress. On the other hand, if you are an optimist, if you learn from your mistakes, you take things in your stride, you will be able to handle stress very well. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about we are in a stressful situation, before you conclude whether you can handle it or not, please bring in the situation you are in, talk about the support that you are given, or sometimes lack of support, and then you talk about yourself. How are you dealing with the stress? And that will give you a more comprehensive approach to stress, instead of blaming stress all the time. Some people are tough, they handle stress very well. Some people are very resilient, they cope with stress very well. They don't succumb to stress. In Chinese, we call them 不倒翁. They fall down, they get up. They fall down, they get up. In Japan, there's a proverb, you fall down 7 times, but you get up 8 times. Because in one of the 4, you have to try twice to get up. So we need to build resilience. We need to arm ourselves with good coping mechanisms. And that will be the theme of today's talk. Unfortunately, for those who cannot deal with stress, they will have issues. And what are the kind of issues they will have? We can discuss. You can ask me questions. It can range from anxiety, feeling panicky, panic attacks. It can be fear, a lot of fear and phobia. It can be, you can become very obsessed, obsessional disorder. You can have depression. You can have mood swing. Your mood is not stable. And you can feel very insecure and behave in a suspicious way. Suspicious about your surrounding, suspicious about your friends and your colleagues. And finally, you can have what we call psychotic breakdown. Hear voices, talk nonsense, and really out of touch with reality. That is the worst kind of response to stress, which we try to avoid. So we respond to stress in many ways. The best way is to handle the stress. We know the body-mind connection, right? The body-mind connection. We know the brain, for example. The brain, we know the brain. The brain is physical. We can see the brain, right? So the brain we know. The mind is something abstract. The mind is abstract. So we know whatever happened to your brain or to your mind can affect your body. It's like the body, mind, or body-brain connection. So the brain is actually the CEO of the whole body. If you look after your brain well, if you know how to handle your brain well, that is to cope with stress well, your body will not succumb. You look at the diagram there, the brain can affect the heart, the brain can affect the stomach. So in fact, if you are anxious, what happens is that gastric juice will be secreted in your stomach. And you have abdominal distension. Your stomach can be distended. So brain can affect the stomach. And brain, if it's not well, if you're under tremendous stress, you can have stomach problem. You can have gastric reflux. You can feel like vomiting, nausea, right? If your stomach is under tremendous stress because you cannot handle the stress well. Sometimes people say the stomach is a second brain because our stomach health is so important. And then the heart is also important, right? The brain also affects the heart. If you are anxious, your heart rate will go up, right? And then if you are in a panic state, your hands will be trembling, right? And your legs will be shaking. And you may have diarrhea, you may have constipation, tightness of chest, difficulty breathing, right? Butterflies in the tummy. And then what happened? You feel dizzy. Because of lack of blood flow to your brain, you have dizzy spell, giddiness, even headache. So the body is affected because the brain is under tremendous stress. And this is the body-mind connection. That's very important. We talk a lot about mind-body connection. When I talk about well-being, when I talk about health, I usually cover 4 areas. And I use the 4 legs of the chair as an illustration, as a metaphor. First of all, social. The 2 front legs refer to social and physical. Social is how we interact with others, how comfortable we are when we are with other people. So if you are not under stress, you are comfortable with yourself, it's very easy to socialize. You are at ease when you socialize. You don't feel tense. You don't feel tense. And that is an illustration that you are having wellness. But that's only one aspect. Then there's physical wellness. We talk about the brain-mind connection. Physical wellness, how fit you are, how healthy you are, and your overall appearance, right? That is physical health. So people see your physical health, your physique first. Then they see how you interact with other people. The third leg is mental health, emotional health. And that is the concern of our topic today. Okay? Concern, this is what we will be discussing today, mental health, emotional well-being, which is the third leg of wellness. And then lastly, don't forget religious and spiritual health. Religious health is self-explanatory. Yeah? How religious you are, whether you are a Muslim, a Hindu, or a Christian. And finally, you have what we call spiritual health. For those without a religion, we talk about spiritual health. And usually, I would define spiritual health as anything, whether it's a hobby, a philosophy, or an approach to life that can lift your spirit, that's called spiritual health. So if you have all 4 legs of a chair well developed, you would have what we call wellness, well-being. You are healthy. The World Health Organization defines health as not just the absence of physical symptoms. It defines health as abilities to socialize, physically fit, emotionally sound, and spiritually healthy. So even the World Health Organization acknowledges health is not just the absence of symptoms. Health is also about social, mental, spiritual, as well as physical. Why do I emphasize on these four aspects? Because in a COVID-19 situation, if any of these four is affected, you cannot have wellness. And it's important to identify which leg is affected and how you can go about restoring health. Now, the COVID-19 situation, I reckon it to be like a loss. I spoke about it over radio, over PSP talk on COVID-19 stress. There is a kind of loss. Why is it seen as loss? Because we are no longer living a so-called normal life, right? We are housebound. Huh? We are supposed to be at home. Of course, now it's lifted. We're into phase 2. But earlier on, for about 2 months, movements were restricted. We were unable to do a lot of things. For those who are living in condo, for example, the gymnasium is closed. The swimming pool is closed. And you just couldn't swim or go to the gym. Right? And so there's some restriction of your usual exercise. For example, if you have been swimming regularly, suddenly for 2 months, just cannot swim. And that's a kind of loss of one hobby, loss of one activity. And you cannot connect with friends because you're not allowed to. So social activities can also be curtailed. Of course, you can talk to a friend virtually, but there's a difference between seeing a friend in reality versus virtually. So loss of freedom, loss of social interaction, loss of the usual activities you have been doing, right? So when you face a loss situation, you react to the loss. So when you react to the loss, you go through phases. The first phase is what we call shock, disbelief, denial. How can this be? I've never experienced this kind of circuit breaker, lockdown situation. Home-based learning, So unlike going to school, you are learning from home using a computer. So shock, disbelief, I miss my friends. I'd rather go to school than to study at home. So can't believe that you can be staying at home. And then phase 2 is you're sad, you cannot do certain things. You worry, what's going to happen? Is this going to go on forever or a few more months, or what's going to happen to your school life? Work, if you haven't been working for months, you worry whether you will be out of job when the circuit breaker is over. So you worry. And then disappointment with situations, with policies, right? Disappointment. Why they didn't do this quick enough? Why they didn't do that quick enough? So you get disappointment. And then because of lockdown, you are at home with fellow family members. So for the first time, a bit of uneasy feeling. Right? Usually, parents will be working, leaving the children, 2 or 3 children at home. Now, 5 or 6 people are at home. So a bit of disappointment, a bit of rough edges, a bit of trying to adjust to one another. Guilt, some element of guilt in reaction to the loss. Why didn't I do enough? If for example, especially if you, I have a friend who ended up with COVID-19 positive, had to be quarantined, had to be admitted, and he was full of guilt. He in the end, he didn't know where he got it. He narrowed down to 2 places, and he was guilt-ridden. I shouldn't have gone to that place, or I should have been more careful. I should have worn a mask and not listened to authorities who say no need to wear a mask. So this kind of guilt, and then anger as well. Anger. Why this can happen to me? And actually, he went through a rough patch. His illness was quite severe, so there was a lot of built up anger in him, a lot of guilt and disappointment. And then these are for the people who are affected. You remember only 20% are considered serious, requiring admission to hospital. Of the 25 may need ICU care. The majority, 80%, are mild and asymptomatic in some cases. So my friend happened to be in that group which required hospitalization, including going to ICU and including intubation. And he was very, very demoralized by the whole process. So his reaction to loss would be greater than someone merely reacting to a mild illness, right? A mild infection. For my friend, his life was chaotic and messy, entering stage 3. Really, he got to reorganize his whole life when he was slowly recovering. But during that period when he was in ICU, it was chaotic and messy, even for family members, for his family members. He just couldn't comprehend, couldn't understand. Like a trip to a supermarket, it ended up almost like a near-death experience. Finally, for the rest of us who are mild or asymptomatic, it can also be chaotic and messy, because life in this kind of situation no longer routine or normal. Social distancing, we have to observe. You have to wear masks when we go out. We wear masks when we go out, right? We have to wear a mask when we go out. And then not more than 5 when we gather. We go to restaurant, not more than 5. A bit of getting used to. There's not that kind of freedom anymore. And finally, stage 4, when we come to terms, firstly, accepting that this is going to be like that for a period of time before things go back to absolute normality. So now it's relative normality. You can't be completely free, but yet you're not completely at home. You can still have some degree of freedom. So we slowly will get used to it. So to sum up this slide, it means it's a reaction to loss. We are reacting to loss, okay? Now I will share with you one technique of dealing with the COVID-19 stressful situation, and it's called mindfulness. How to be mindful that this is a situation we are in. How do I create meaning out of this situation? Sometimes they call stage 5 as creating meaning out of this reaction to loss. And slowly, not only you successfully overcome a crisis, you also add meaning to your life and help you to reflect and project forward. So mindfulness is what I will be sharing now. Mindfulness is a real hot topic. Everybody is talking about it. Originally, it came from Buddhism, and now it's in mainstream psychology. Basically, it's to use the mind. Mindfulness is about using the mind. And my favorite guru in this field of mindfulness is Jon Kabat-Zinn, Z-I-N, Jon Kabat-Zinn. Jon Kabat-Zinn has done a lot of work in this area, 40 over years of work. And his basic definition is mindfulness is about paying attention. Paying attention to what? To the present moment, here and now. All right? And so that you can be relaxed, so that you can open your mind to new possibilities, to new perspective, without judgment, And actually, mindfulness is a way of freeing yourself, right? You pay attention to the present moment. present moment, and then you free your mind to think of possibilities. It's like thinking out of the box, so that in a non-judgmental way, unjudgmental way, you enjoy the moment, you learn from the moment, and you free yourself from being trapped in the past or worry about the future. That's the beauty of mindfulness. Because many a time when we are in a situation, we think of the past and we worry about what will happen next. And it prevents us from enjoying the moment. I therefore define mindfulness as enjoying the present, paying attention, enjoying the present moment, and opening up the mind. So mindfulness is opening up the mind to explore possibilities and new perspectives in order to free yourself. So when you're open, you're free. When you're closed, you're trapped. So that's the beauty of mindfulness. I have written a little booklet called Do Learn Grow. Okay, Do Learn Grow. And it's living mindfully, 5-finger mindfulness, using the 5-finger with the acronym FOCUS, focus. If you want a soft copy of this book, the email address is there, angyongguan@gmail.com. And I will send a copy to you, okay? So let me summarize the key points of 5-finger mindfulness for the remaining slides. 5-finger mindfulness, how you open up your 5-finger mindfulness. Okay, there you are, John Kabat-Zinn's definition. Paying attention to the present, non-judgmentally, open new possibilities and free yourself. That is the meaning of mindfulness. And using this definition, I felt it's very easy to remember just by using the 5 fingers, Step 1 in 5-finger mindfulness is coming down, right? I told you, right? Mindfulness, the acronym is FOCUS, focus, right? Focus, FOCUS. So FOCUS. So C is here. C stands for calming down by deep breathing. Okay, it's the longest finger and it's the most important step. You calm down by deep breathing. In any stressful situation you are in, remember to take a deep breath. We all know, but now we know the reason. 1, you send oxygen to your brain. When you do deep breathing, you are sending oxygen to your brain. You do 5 times, you are also buying time. When you buy time, you can reflect rather than react. So it allows you to reflect rather than react. You do not act impulsively if you practice mindfulness. So mindfulness begins with step 1, deep breathing. And the step is you breathe in oxygen. Normal breathing is 2 seconds. In mindfulness breathing, you add 2 more seconds. And you count 3, 4. Let me illustrate. 3, 4. So I'm breathing total of 4 seconds. Then I push out my abdomen. When I push out my abdomen, I'm expanding my abdomen for my lungs to expand downwards. The lungs cannot expand forward because of the rib cage. The lungs can only expand downwards, right? And to give space for the downward expanding lungs, I push my abdomen out. And meanwhile, I breathe in, right? I have to breathe out. And when I breathe out, I add 5, 6, 7. Let me illustrate. Let me demonstrate. When I breathe in, 3, 4. I count silently, 3, 4, just to make sure I breathe in deeper. Then when I breathe out, I count 5, 6, 7. Because I'm breathing out carbon dioxide, and therefore I want to breathe out more carbon dioxide, I add 1 more second. In is 3, 4. Out is 5, 6, 7. In is 3, 4. Out is 5, 6, 7. 3, 4. 5, 6, 7. 3, 4. 5, 6, 7. 3, 4. 5, 6, 7. 3, 4. 5, 6, 7. Ladies and gentlemen, all you have to do is breathe 4, 5 times. And what happened? You would have 25 to 30 seconds of breath. And that allows, that 30 seconds allow you to reflect rather than to react. Many a times we react impulsively without reflection, and then we regret subsequently. That's step 1. Step 2 is open up your 5 finger, open up your 5 finger, open up your 5 finger. And that's O, F-O-C-U-S. O is for opening up. Why open up 5 finger? So that you have 5 ways of looking at the event, 5 perspectives. If you think 5 is not enough, another 5. Not enough, another 5. So in essence, you have multiple 5s, multiple of 5s to look at the problem, to look at the situation. But if your mind is not open, if it's closed, either you have no idea what's happening, or you have only one idea of what is happening. But when you open your mind, you have many ideas of what is happening. Therefore, that is the concept of opening your mind. And I would like to add a few more things. When you open your mind, when you open your 5 finger, it also reminds you of the normal distribution curve. This is called a normal distribution curve. 20% are bright, 20% are not so bright. The middle 60% are average. So this is the normal distribution curve. And it makes us aware of individual differences. Some people are slow, some people are too fast. Most of us are average. Some people eat a lot, some people eat very little. Most of us eat appropriately. So the 5 finger is a very powerful concept to illustrate that we are all different, point 1. Point 2, it also illustrates we don't have to be perfect. It is a symbol of imperfection. Tall, short, fat, thin. All right, if our Creator wants us to have perfection, He would have given us 5 thumbs. Unfortunately, it's not 5 thumbs. It's 5 finger, different thickness, different shape, right? Different length. So that is the power of looking at the 5 finger. It's about imperfection. At the same time, normal distribution curve. So it gives us perspective. It makes us see things in perspective. That takes care of step 2. Now, step 3 is telling you, don't just look at the negative. Don't just look at the negative. Many of my patients have anxiety disorders, are worriers. They worry a lot, almost non-stop worrying. And they're very negative. Every time they see something, they inevitably think of the negative. You know the colloquial saying, half empty or half full. They would look at the half empty instead of the glass being half full. In mindfulness training, don't ignore the positive. So I use the little finger to represent negative. I use the thumb to represent positive. So it's not just negative, it's positive. And you cannot cut away the little finger, right? To say that, oh, I only want the positive. We need to embrace, yes, negativity is part of positivity. It's within positivity. From negativity, I learn and I can be positive. So we learn from our mistakes. Negative is as important as, because it teaches us lessons. So we don't just focus on it, we also focus on positivity, the positive, to give it a balance. And in step 4 of mindfulness, back to the definition of John Kabat-Zinn, we are urged to live in the present. Yeah, this middle finger represents present. Don't do just little finger alone. It must be balanced by the little finger and the thumb. And it means what? It means live in the present, here and now, relax, enjoy. That's why it's called present. A present is a gift. I give you a birthday present. Birthday present. So enjoy the present. And yes, we all have a past. In mindfulness training, we talk about accepting the past, if possible with no regrets. When you cannot accept the past, and when you have regrets, it stays in your subconscious. It stays in your memory store. And it will come and haunt you every now and then, especially when you see something that reminds you of the past. You hear something that reminds you of the past. Then in mindfulness training, enjoy the present, come to terms with the past, and we learn to plan for the future, not to worry about the future. Many people, while they are in the present, they think of the future. And then when they think of the future, they start worrying. So instead of giving 100% to the present, they are trapped. The energy goes to thinking about the past, and part of the energy goes to worrying about the future. So instead of living 100% in the present, they are trapped in the past. 10-20% go to the past, 10-20% go to the future. They can't enjoy the present. The present is left with 60%, 70%. You can't wholeheartedly enjoy the present. So in mindfulness, we're saying, enjoy the present. Yes, we have past, we contain it, we come to terms with it. Yes, we have future, we plan for the future, not worry about the future. So these are life skills that we all talk about when we talk about mindfulness. Then this is a symbol for worrying, goes on and on, no beginning, no end, drains energy, creates a lot of emotional tension. I say emotional tension. We have tension, emotional tension. So rumination is about excessive worrying. And excessive worrying leads you nowhere. In mindfulness training, we talk about planning. Planning, if this happen, what will I do? If that happen, what will I do? Plan B, plan C, plan D. If plan A cannot work out. And we talk about a concept called containing the problem. If the problem cannot be solved immediately. Not all problems can be solved immediately. All right? We are fighting an election, a COVID-19 election. There are a lot of issues to trash out. We contain some of these issues. We march on. Closure will be the night of 10 July when we know the results. So between now and polling day, we plan, we do our best, we contain, we manage what we contain, because we can't solve the problem now. We only know on 10th of July, but we can plan. We contain, plan options A, B, C, D, E. And then we are ready when we plan carefully. We won't be caught off guard because we are planning properly. And that applies to any event in your life. Put some thoughts to it, work out the options, work out the possible solutions, possible plans, contain it either in the form of a journal, write it down, or key into your handphone, various options. So in your mind, you have various plans in your mind. And when you have plans, you don't worry. You only worry when you don't have plans. If you have good plans, you live in the present happily. You sleep happily because you have no worries. All are transformed into plans. All your worries are in the form of planning contained in A, B, C, D, E. You can have all the way to Z, 26 containers. You're not worried. But when you worry, it goes on and on and on non-stop. I famously call it or non-stop. You go or non-stop. And it will make you unable to sleep. Patients come to see me and say, Dr. Ang, I can't sleep. You talk to them for half an hour, you realize they have been worrying about a lot of things. There you are, FOCUS. I've covered step 1, coming down, C. I covered step 2, open up your 5 finger. I covered step 3, stay positive, stay positive. I covered 4 and 5, live in the present, plan for your future, plan for your future. And then step 5 is all about being unjudgmental. And step 6 is support from family, friends, and colleagues. And that formed the acronym FOCUS, FOCUS. You see the word page 28. When you download the soft copy, page 28 refers to, it's also found on page 28 of my booklet. I have made this video. It's available on my Facebook. I just play a little bit for you to see. The rest you can download from the Facebook. Dear friends, I was on radio talk about COVID-19 stress. Today I would share with you how to cope with this form of stress. The method I'm using is called a 5-finger mindfulness method. I'd like to share with you this method. I have come up with a booklet, and if you want this booklet, you can email me angyongguan@gmail.com, and I will be able to send a soft copy to you. Basically, what is 5-finger mindfulness? 5-finger mindfulness. Okay, I will stop here. You can go to the Facebook, or you can ask for a soft copy, angyongguan@gmail.com. Okay. Now I show you this slide basically to tell you that if we can't cope, we end up with many problems. Today we are only focusing on number 7, stress-related disorders, adjustment disorders, acute stress disorders, post-traumatic stress disorders. The rest are also in the booklet, page 34. You can ask me questions, not just about stress-related disorders. You can ask me questions pertaining to the rest. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I have briefly talked a little about stress, especially a reaction to loss. COVID-19 as a reaction to loss. I have shared with you the 5-finger mindfulness, and I hope you have some take-home messages. Now I pass the mic over to Stephen. Stephen, over to you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ang. We received many questions this evening. Some are similar, and we rephrase them to accommodate as many as we can. And some questions do not relate to this evening topic, and I'm very sorry that we have to skip these questions. And we have about 10 questions here. So the first question is our current public healthcare system equipped to help those with psychiatric healthcare needs? Hi, Dr. Ang.
Yes, I think there is a structure in place. They have counseling services for people who need counseling. So that part I'm not too worried about. There's a hotline where you can call up, and then the counselors will attend to your problems. So that's not the issue. Accessibility, I think, should not be a problem. It's just a phone call away. And now with online video and Zooming, it's also possible to have counseling in a virtual way. Thank you. Next question, Stephen.
Okay.
Over to you, Stephen.
The question is, my mom is someone who is quite prone to anxiety and getting depressed. how can the likelihood of getting depressed be reduced?
Okay, it's a very good question. Some people have a tendency to get anxious and depressed easily. And one of the reasons I alluded to in my slide presentation is their personality makeup. People who tend to worry a lot, people who are perfectionists, people who cannot learn from mistakes, and people who need a lot of encouragement, validation from outside. They tend to be prone to depression and anxiety. So ask yourself, what kind of person is my mother? Is she an optimist? Is she a pessimist? Is she a worrier or a warrior? A warrior means they can deal with stress very well. How resilient is my mother? If you find that it is personality issues, then really sometimes it's very hard to help because they are prone to anxiety and depression. And personality is not easily changed. After so many years of formation, we are quite fixed in our manners and our behavior. To change personality is not an easy thing. But we can help her cope with the stress of living in a stressful society. We can help her. We can encourage her, help her, perhaps have certain common activities with her, going out with her more often, going for walks more often, find out what she really likes. If she likes to watch drama, serial on television, watch it with her. So in a way, keep her company, make her realize that support is there. Remember, S is support. Support from family members is there. And then help her deal with her vulnerability. A lot of people who are prone to anxiety and depression, they feel vulnerable. So we really have to tell them, don't worry, I'm around, don't worry, things will be all right. They need a lot of constant reassurance. And it's partly because of their personality, which is so difficult to change. Once you realize that, you don't get upset, you empathize with her. You realize that you can't change her personality, but you can make life tolerable for her. Thank you. Back to you, Stephen.
All right, we have a couple of questions more coming in, and this question is quite related to the previous one. Now, the question is, what's the difference between mindfulness, forgetfulness, and dementia?
Very, very powerful question. First of all, what's the difference between forgetfulness and dementia? It's a matter of degree. Forgetfulness happens to all of us. We become forgetful now and then, especially when we are tired, especially when we don't have enough sleep, especially when we are preoccupied in our mind. We tend to have moments of forgetfulness. Dementia is a different ballgame. Dementia is a clinical condition of inability to recall recent events. And some of these inability to recall recent events can worsen. And then you end up with dementia. And it's a clinical condition. So OH forgetfulness and OH dementia are two different things. OH forgetfulness can be considered normal. OH dementia is a clinical condition that needs treatment because that loss of memory sometimes can be irreversible. So when we talk about dementia, we talk about mild, moderate, or severe dementia. The severe one, you have tremendous difficulty reversing the process. But forgetfulness, I'm not too worried. Now, what about mindfulness? Mindfulness is actually helping to deal with forgetfulness, helping to deal with dementia. There's a recent article using mindfulness to prevent dementia from happening. Why? Because you are using the mind all the time. If you use the mind all the time, you are actively engaging your mind. If you are actively engaging your mind, you are less likely to get demented. So mindfulness is a way of preventing dementia, if I may say so. Thank you. I hope I've answered that question. Stephen, back to you.
All right, this question is medication a good solution to cope with stress? And how does one know if one needs medication and professional help?
Again, a very good question. And I like to use the M&M chocolate. I'm not advertising for M&M, but M&M chocolate. The first M is medication. The second M is mindfulness and other methods. Therefore, does it mean we have to take medicine? In some mild cases, we do not need to take medicine. We need to go to the second M, which is mindfulness and other methods, such as exercise, hobbies, social interaction, religion. All these play a part in helping you, whether it's mild or severe anxiety. In severe cases, you may need medication, maybe for a short period of time. Then when you are stabilized, when you are stabilized, then you can go on to talk about the second M, other methods of dealing with your problems. So it's an M&M approach. First M is medication. Second M is other methods, which include counseling as well. Therefore, don't rush to take medicine, that's for sure. Assess the situation. If it's mild, can I use other methods to cope? If it's serious, yes, go and see a professional for help. And then he will assess you, see whether you're mild, moderate, or severe, and will suggest medication. For certain conditions, which are not severe, you don't need long-term medication. You need long-term medication for conditions like schizophrenia. It is a very serious mental disorder affecting the brain. They have hallucination, delusions, and loss of touch with reality. Right? That you may require medicine for life sometimes. Bipolar disorder, you may require medicine for life. But for mild anxiety, for stress-related disorders, medication may not be the first point, right? The first point should be other methods. Over to you, Stephen.
All right. COVID-19 gave us a lot of stress, especially financial stress. See HDB, estate depreciating in value. This add more stress to us. And of course, there's another advice is, what would you give to Singaporeans for advice who fear the level of comfort be disrupted if they vote for opposition, and how to overcome this fear of unknown? So there are two parts. One is financial stress. The other one is the stress of fear of the unknown.
Okay, financial stress. One of the issues we're talking about is retirement adequacy. Another issue we're talking about is income gap, the income gap. So we have to ask ourselves, why is there the problem in the first place? People are feeling the burden of living in Singapore is said to be the most expensive nation in the world for a few consecutive years. So what is happening? There is a difference between wealth creation versus income distribution, income creation and income distribution. So the whole idea that you may be a wealthy nation, but if that wealth is not properly distributed, adequately distributed, you still have a big chunk at the bottom who are not getting the benefits of economic growth. So that's one whole topic which is not the topic I'm going to go into. So that will cover why we work so hard, we work so many hours, yet we feel that retirement adequacy is not there. We feel that we don't seem to have enough. OCBC did a survey. They found out that they surveyed about 1,000 Singaporeans. They found out about 2/3 their saving can only last about 6 months. So it's a very worrisome topic. And that means we go back to fundamentals of government, governance, fundamental of governance, and then explore what was working in the past. Why is it not working now? What went wrong with the system? What can we do to correct the system? My first impulse is the influx of foreign workers, close to 1 million of them. dampening income for Singaporeans. Because you heard a video clip by Tommy Koh, Professor Tommy Koh. One MP told him one foreign worker was earning $800 a month because he was staying in the hostel. He could afford to send the $800 back to his hometown. But a Singaporean earning $800, for that matter, $1,000+, he lives in Singapore. He's not living in a hostel. And the cost of living for him is so high and definitely not enough. So even Professor Tommy Koh highlighted this problem, that because of the influx of foreign workers, the whole atmosphere is dampening of wages at the bottom. Then not forgetting the influx of foreign PMET coming to Singapore to compete with our local PMET. And the net result is, if employers can get a cheaper foreign PMET, why should he employ a local PMET? What do we get? PMETs were out of job. They can't sustain high cost of living. And many end up as Grab drivers. So that I'm just giving you a rough sketch of what I feel are the problems. We can go into detail. But what is important is PSP has its policy paper. PSP has its manifesto. And we will address all these problems. Okay, about income, about employment, about the influx of foreign workers, and how it's affecting our way of life, our cost of living. Okay, that takes care of the first part. The second part, Stephen, can you remind me of the second part?
Sure. Second part will be, what advice will you give to Singaporeans who fear their level of comfort be disrupted if they vote for opposition, and how to overcome this fear of unknown?
Okay, fear of the unknown. The PAP has been in power since 1959, 61 years. And there was a period from 68 to 81. 100% of parliament was occupied by the PAP, 100% for 13 years. And when you have every member is a PAP member in parliament, can you imagine what would happen? They consolidated power. They would change laws to suit their needs. Even in the presence of Workers' Party, 6, 7 opposition MPs, they just bulldoze their way. They changed the law. They suddenly woke up and realized that we need a non-Chinese president. And they just changed the law. So for 61 years, we're so used to one-party system. It's fine, if they look after the people, if they narrow the income gap, if they don't pay themselves so much, then fine, Singapore will continue to prosper under the PAP. But not the last 10, 15 years. We can see the erosion of values. We can see the erosion of trust. We can see the erosion of principles. You can't run a country without values, without principles, without beliefs. Like PSP song says, running Singapore is not like running a company. Singapore is more than a company. We are a nation of people. We are a nation of citizens. We have feelings. We want to identify with the nation. We want to feel patriotic. Right? And patriotism is not just because you vote PAP, then you are considered patriotic. Patriotism is you love the nation. You want to die for Singapore. That's patriotism. So we have been brainwashed, indoctrinated, that they have picked the best. They are the best to govern Singapore. And the net result is everybody fear if PAP is not in power, Singapore will go downhill. No, Singapore will not go downhill. We have the civil service, we have the police, we have the military who are independent, neutral. But because over the years, the perception is that they are aligned with the PAP. They are together with the PAP, affiliated. So we are worried that, if PAP goes down, this institution will also fumble. No, they won't fumble. They are very solid. These institutions are very solid. They will continue, whoever takes over power. So because we've been indoctrinated, brainwashed to think that without the PAP, we can't survive. It's not true. It's not true. And because we can't suddenly take over power anyway, right? We from 6, 7 members, 8, 9 members, all we are asking for is one third out of 93 seats. Give us 32 seats so that we can have a check and balance on the PAP government, right? And then whenever they do things, they will think twice. They will reflect. They will practice mindfulness. They will practice mindfulness, mindful of their policies on Singaporeans. So don't worry. In fact, if you have 1/3 from the alternative parties, put the PAP on their toes, Singapore will grow better, greater, and more dynamic nations. And it's not a one-size-fits-all, no? Every yes man kind of mentality. It is many people can contribute. It's diversity with unity. Now is only one, and that is the PAP's voice. So, Stephen, I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, definitely. And a lot of questions are pouring in. I'm trying to consolidate them. The next question is, it can be difficult to get a job during COVID-19 situation. How do we cope with unsupportive family who keep saying, get a better job with higher pay? People set high expectations. How to adjust a sense of reality?
Very, very good question. It's about how we measure success. We have been so used to measurement of success is what car you drive, what jobs you hold, where you stay, what school you go to, what field are you in. I think we have to move away from that model. Life is not about just economic success. Success can be defined in many ways. Music, art, sports. If you are successful in this area, you are also successful. So when somebody say, go and look for a better job, go and look for a higher paying job, that person, the family member is using his or her yardstick on you. Assuming you're not interested in a high paying job because you don't like the job. You prefer a low paying job, but you enjoy the kind of work. Then you are in a dilemma. Do I listen to my family members, or do I just carry on earning not so much, but in a passionate job I'm in, passionate about the job I'm in? So it's usually a tussle. And to me, it boils down to values. What kind of values we put on jobs. Values become very important. So I urge Singaporeans to have a wider definition of success. Success is not just about the job you hold, the income, the money you make. I think it's more than money, okay? It's more than being an economic digit. Success is about happiness in your life, doing things you want to do. Of course, with sufficient income. You just can't live without income, right? Well, I can empathize with this person, family members pushing this person, go and get a better paying job, go and look for another job. I think inevitably you will feel the pressure. And this is how people get stressed. And some of these, beyond your control, is people putting pressure on you. And if you can't change them, you just have to change your reaction towards them. Tell yourself, this is a group of Singaporeans who just measure success by their own narrow, parochial way. As long as you don't measure it that way, you measure success in your own way. Yes, I hope I have answered that question. Stephen, back to you.
Very, very good. All right. Many people feel stressed to find jobs, as many PMET jobs are taken away by the EP holders. So how can we manage our stress?
That's why everybody say, oh, I don't want to get involved in politics. Politics doesn't affect me. Politics are for politicians. I think we have to get real. Politics affect us, every area of our life. This is a good question. They are coming to rob my job. I'm the all this PMET from overseas. So it's real. And to solve the problem, it's not piecemeal attempt to solve the problem. You can't solve problem by piecemeal. If piecemeal is symptomatic treatment. If I have cough, right, you give me cough mixture, but my cough comes from pneumonia. You don't take care of my pneumonia. You don't give me antibiotic to handle the infection. Giving me cough mixture, my cough is temporarily suppressed, but my pneumonia is still there. And pneumonia requires antibiotic. So certain issues in Singapore cannot be just tackled piecemeal. We got to look at it from a broader perspective. And sometimes it requires fundamental change. And the fundamental change comes from being involved in the political process, questioning them. Why are you allowing so many foreign PMET to come in? What is the basis? Now what can we do about it? What is our long-term plan, 5 years, 10 years from now? We are not just interested in long-term 5-year plan, more buildings, more infrastructure. No, it's not like that. We also want to have long-term plan for our population's morale, our people's esteem, our people's trust and faith in the ruling party, in the government, right? And it can only come about if you have sizable number of opposition members, 32 of them, putting pressure on them, making them, whenever they want to make a policy, to think twice. Then they would say, stop foreign PMET. Let's build our own local PMET. Let's build the entrepreneurial the spirit, entrepreneurial climate, innovative climate. Let's have another Steve Jobs, another Bill Gates in Singapore. Not just, importing labor from overseas, hoping to grow the economy, GDP, at the expense of people's innovation, people's future, people's esteem. I think it's about time we pay attention to our people, and not just for the sake of the GDP, cheap labor, foreign labor. It's about time to stop. But having said that, as I say, we need a comprehensive approach to the topic, not symptomatic treatment. Over to you, Stephen.
Right, thank you. A lot of people are pretty confused, the difference between PMET, overseas PMET EP holders, and the foreign workers with work pass permit or work pass. So there's a very interesting question here by someone who is very sympathetic towards the people from overseas with the work pass who help us in our daily affairs, things you don't do. The question is, for foreign workers with work pass permit or work pass, how do we take care of their mental health? In depth to agents, work long hours, do things that we locals don't want to do, and stay in cramped conditions. So how do we take care of their mental health?
Stephen, that's a very, very important point. Difference between the work pass holder, many of them earn $800-900 a month. And as you correctly say, they owe their agents money. Versus, and we have got close to 1 million of them. And then you have the EP holders. They are a different ball game. The EP holders are akin to our what we call our PMET. In fact, if you go to the MOM website, they use income level. If you are earning more than 3,009 a month, 3,008 or 3,009, you are classified as under EP, right? And then if it's 2004, it's another category. And then the third category will be your WP, your work permit holder. And they form the bulk, close to 1 million, all right? Now, their mental health. I think we all know the COVID-19 is a wake-up call, waking up the authorities about the plight of this group of people. Everybody now knows 13 to 15 to 20 packed in one room. And the dormitory boss is just interested in collecting rent, right? And minimal facilities given. There was supposed to be a commissioner of dormitory, the former MOM, Minister of Manpower, Tan Chuan Jin, right? Was actually, he actually proposed a paper which was tabled in 2015. And there was supposed to be a commissioner of dormitory. His job is to look at all the dormitories in Singapore. I think it's about close to 40 of them, 40 dormitory, and maintain standard and make sure that adequate hygiene, adequate standards are maintained. But apparently, I read that many of these dormitories failed certain standards. They were not well maintained. And COVID-19 exposed more such cases. So I hope it's a wake-up call. I hope they realize, don't look down on them. Don't ignore them. They are very important. They help to build Singapore. And it's not fair that they are left alone to suffer. So that takes care of the physical part, the physical health, the physical hygiene, the place where they live in. I think we need to pay attention. And of course, their mental health as well. How do we do it? We need to come up with a comprehensive plan. How to have counselors who speak the language, how to have counselors who go down to a particular area so that dormitories near the area can come and seek help. We really, this is an example of post-COVID-19 plan for work permit holders. We've got to take a total relook at them. And at this juncture, I would like to highlight patient 42. He's a work permit holder from Bangladesh. He went to Mustafa. He had symptoms. He went to polyclinic. They took swab from him. He was allowed to go back to his dormitory. He was finally admitted only around early February, 6th of February. So in that few days, by going back to the dormitory, he would have infected some of his fellow workers. And what MOM did was to clean up the place. Cleaning, they thought cleaning would do the job. Unfortunately, they didn't go far enough to test the people there, to cordon off the group. So for 1 month, nothing was done. A whole month until early March. Then the authorities woke up to realize that this is a hot potato. There was a period of few days when positive cases exceeded 1,000 a day. And lo and behold, 40 over 1,000 people. Per capita, we are the highest in the world. Of course, we proudly say it's low mortality, less than 30 deaths. I think it's about 25 or 26 deaths. That's fine. But the foreign dormitory issue is a real big headache, right? Contrast this with patient 31 in South Korea. From a church, the moment she was identified, the 200,000 church members were screened and were cordoned off as a potential cluster. In the end, what happened? South Korea did very well. They didn't have a national lockdown, maybe in certain cities, but not a national lockdown. Okay, so what's my point? My point is that COVID-19 is really a wake-up call, that we really have to look after the WP if we really want to get them to work in Singapore. Right? Fundamentally, we've got to take a relook. How do we handle this group of people? We always say, oh, Singaporeans don't want to be construction workers, Singaporeans don't want to be plumber, don't want to be aircon technician, don't want to do dirty job. How do you expect a Singaporean to work in those lines when you pay a foreign worker $800, $700? He can't. So we got to really relook, how do we really pay these low-paying workers a living wage sufficient for them to live a healthy, proper life? And how do we make it in such a way that we attract people to join their ranks? You and I know in Australia, in developed country, a plumber earns quite a fair bit. The electrician earns quite a fair bit. In fact, almost on par with a technician or even a professional. So because they're proud to be in that trade. And with pride comes esteem. With esteem comes mental health. This is what is the direction that we must head towards. Not just relying on foreign worker, cheap foreign worker, to build mega infrastructure, to grow the GDP at the expense of the happiness of the people and the cost of living of the people. So what's my final point? Yes, let's do something for the WP. Economic growth is important, but we must look into the quality of life for Singaporeans. Back to you, Stephen.
Right, very interesting reply. Now we have a bit of difference in the question. This from a student. We have a very stressful education system. With COVID-19, the stress is even more. What can be done to reduce the stress among the students?
It's again back to the question of definition of success. How do we define success? And if we define success in a very narrow way, academic achievement equals success, we are going to have stress. Every parent will say, you better study hard, you better go into jobs from the mainstream, doctors, lawyers, accountant, respectable jobs. That would be the pressure on you. Let's say you want to be a musician, you want to be an artist, you want to play professional football. Your parents will discourage you. They say, no, study first. Get a physics degree, get a maths degree first. Then you can be a musician, then you can be an artist. Nothing wrong there. But a lot of your passion will be driven out of you into those academic subjects. Of course, we're trying to make things better now. Streaming, we know streaming was bad. Now they woke up. They have subject-based learning now. Subject-based banding, not learning. Subject-based banding, where your subject is classified as G1, G2, or G3. If you are very clever, you take mathematics at G3 level. You're not so clever, you take mathematics at G2 level. If you're weak in maths, you take it at G1 level. That's very good. So they don't make you what? Normal, express, normal technical, normal academic. No more. By the year 2028 or 27, there will be a national exam, and it's going to be subject-based banding, which I welcome it. I think it's very good. But it took them so long. We've been saying that streaming is bad for mental health. Imagine at the age of 12, when you go to Sec 1, at 13, you're told you're good, you're expressed. You're no good, you're normal, which itself is a euphemism. The normal is abnormal. The express is normal, right? And then what happened? You are labeled, I'm normal technical, I'm normal academic. If you're esteemed, if you're a very sensitive person who worries a lot what people think of you, you're going to end up with low esteem. You're going to end up with a lot of insecurity. Of course, like I say about the 5 finger, there will be one group, they don't care how you label them. They will continue to prosper and flourish. There will be a group highly sensitive. You label them as normal academic, the whole life can be ruined and affected. Of course, once in a while you say, oh, this person, normal academic, now is a professor. They are the outliers. Once in a blue moon, you have an outlier. But you don't get outliers all the time, right? So I'm very glad streaming is a thing of the past. Although it has done so much, it has done damage. I wouldn't say how much. It has done damage to many esteem, many egos, many emotional lives. It's a thing of the past now. Now they're going to subject-based banding, which is very good. So you can, if you are good in maths, then you take a G3. You are good in Chinese, you take a G3 level. That's very healthy. Glad. Good approach. But it's because we are asking ourselves, why are we grading our people and slotting them into categories? Many people say, do away with primary 6 examination, PSLE. At 12, your exam is so important. But now, because of subject-based banding, maybe even though you don't do well for primary 6, you can still take G1 in maths, G2 in English, G3 in literature, that kind of approach. rather than to say you're normal academic, or you are express. We are labeling people too early, too fast. And that may be a source of stress, right? So first of all, how we define success. Secondly, how we label our pupils. And we're moving away from that. No more streaming. A lot to do with banding now. And please pay attention to those who are not academically inclined. Not everybody is academically inclined. Pay attention to them. I'm a firm believer that PSLE should not be just maths, English, science, and Chinese. What about those who are good in arts, sports, music, right? You are not featured in the PSLE syllabus. Your subjects are not there. Then you're forced to do four subjects. Of course, the argument is those are basic. You need to have basic. Fair enough. But let's don't ignore people who are not good in the academic area. Okay, enough. Stephen, back to you.
All right. As a question here is for people who are easily stressed and angry, any useful methods to cope, especially during COVID-19 situation. So I think this one can be easily recommend them to do the five finger mindfulness approach. Yes. So you can watch this video at the Dr. Ang Yong Guan Facebook or YouTube. You can get it from www.angyongguan.com. All right, so I think you will gain some very useful information from there regarding the five fingers mindfulness approach. And the next question is, I tend to forget things easily. I'm in my 70s. Could this be dementia?
I thank you very much for the question. Earlier on, I say forgetfulness is normal. We all forget. And I say when you are tired, when you can't sleep well, or when you are aging, forgetfulness is the norm. But dementia is a separate thing. So very simple. Can you draw the face of a clock properly? 12, 6, 3, 9, and then 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 11, 10, 11. You can draw and space it out properly, and you can remember what breakfast you took this morning. You are not going to be demented. You are unlikely to have dementia. But you can't draw a clock properly. You don't know where to put the 6, where to put the 9, and where to put the 3. Then you have to see a doctor for professional help. Or you cannot remember the breakfast you took this morning, because dementia is about memory, loss of short-term memory, right? People who are demented remember things that happened long time ago. And they have no problem with old memory. They have problem with new memory. I always say how to tell whether a person has early, moderate, or severe dementia. For early dementia, when you show them the watch, they will be a bit slow, but they tell you this is watch after a few seconds. For moderate dementia, you show them the watch, they look at it, they can't tell it's a watch, but they will say it's for telling time, which is correct, but they can't name the item. For the severely demented, you show them a watch, they stare at it, and they cannot tell you whether it's for telling time or whether it's a watch. So if you are 70 years old, if you can name a watch quickly, you are unlikely to be demented. The same for if somebody shows you a pen, right? If you have very, very early dementia, your answer will not be prompt. You would say after a while, pen, I think it's a pen. That's early. For normal people, they will laugh at you. Why are you showing me such easy thing? Doctor, why you show me such easy thing? But for early dementia, they will take a while before they name pen. Normal people will straight away say pen. Or why you show me such a simple thing? For moderate dementia, they will take a while. It's for writing, right? They can't name it, but they know it's for writing. For severe dementia, you show them. They can't name it, and they don't know it's for writing. So this is from years of clinical experience. If I have to test somebody for dementia, quickly I will use it. And some simple question. I give them 3 items to remember: ball, car, and man. Then 5 minutes later, I asked them, what were the items I asked you to name? They cannot. They repeat after me, ball, car, man. Then 5 minutes later, ball. So they got one item, after a long while, one item correct. And they can't remember the car and the man. Then family members who come with them, oh, ball, car, man, very fast, because they are not demented. They don't have problem. So these are various ways of telling this 70-year-old questioner whether he's got dementia or not. And if it's forgetfulness, all of us forget from time to time. Back to you, Stephen.
Wow, it's very good. Dr. Ang is very professional. I'm sure a lot of elderly will benefit from this. Mental health is always one of the biggest problems among the elderly. All right, the next question is caregiver. Caregiver stress is a real issue. At present, there's no funding or subsidy for counseling for caregivers from burnout. What measures can be proposed for caregiver support as a subsidized service in Singapore? So this is one of the questions that they ask.
I am proud to tell viewers that there is a Caregivers Alliance. Caregivers Alliance. They run courses for caregivers, how to care for your demented patient, your demented relatives, your mentally ill relatives, especially those who are schizophrenic and those with bipolar disorder. They are more chronic, long-term conditions, unlike the stress we talk about today. Acute stress reaction is recoverable. But if you have schizophrenia and bipolar, they tend to be long-term illnesses. And a caregiver, they have caregiver stress and caregiver burnout. Today, I got a patient who didn't see me for 4 years. Today appeared in my clinic, euphoric, elated, singing away, singing away, dancing and singing and claiming that he's got superpower, he can change the world, he can cure COVID-19. He's going to find the vaccine very soon, discover the vaccine. So he was very high, elated. That's an example of bipolar. When well treated, well controlled, they have no problem. They can function, they can work. But COVID-19 can't work, can't be in office, precipitated the problem. That one requires long-term care. The caregiver, in this case, is the wife. And you can see the wife crying away, helpless, hopeless, don't know what to do. The son came along, the son said, what's wrong with my father? He was never like that, because the son was very young when the father was not well. For 4 years, the father was well, no problem. And now suffered a relapse. So caregiver stress is very real. If you look after somebody with dementia, I guarantee you would feel the stress. Because you are dealing with somebody who doesn't know what is happening, who doesn't reciprocate, who doesn't listen to you, who's not logical anymore. And it's very frustrating. It's a one-way direction, you give and give and give and give, but there's no taking back. And it's your mother, your father. You cannot say, I don't want to take care. You got values. The value is filial piety. Parents, they are my parents. They look after me. I got to look after them now. But there's a limit. There's a limit. So caregiver stress is very, very real. Therefore, one day, one retired doctor came to me and said, Dr. Ang, and the husband is also a doctor, a very renowned doctor. I say, how is your husband? My husband is in a nursing home, suffering from dementia. Oh, I say, wow, what happened? And I say, how often you see your husband? Maybe once a year. I don't want to go there every month. I know he's in good hand, nursing care, few $1,000s a month. I can't bear to see him, because every time I see him, it's like attending a funeral. Because he can't recognize me. He doesn't know who I am. And it's so painful to see your loved one going downhill. He can't even recognize you. And what happened? It's like attending a funeral. So I'd rather not see him regularly. I'll see him once a while. Because I know, I'm not heartless, Dr. Ang. I know he's in good hand. It pains my heart. I will remember this story for the rest of my life. You don't see your loved one because it's like attending a funeral because he's demented. He doesn't know you. He doesn't know you come, right? And rather see him every month or see him every week, you see him once a year because you know he's under good care. And that's caregivers knowing that it's very stressful, very painful, cope by avoidance, by avoiding going to see the husband. There's nothing wrong, it's just her way of coping. But many don't have the fortune of putting your loved one in a nursing home, paying a few $1,000s for them to have good care, for the patient to have good care. So you end up caring for the patient, and it's very stressful. But be rest assured, there's Dementia Association, there is a Singapore Association of Mental Health, there's Caregivers Alliance. I think enough people around who are willing to help. Question is, who do you go to their website, link up with someone? They have courses, they conduct courses for caregivers burnout. As for subsidy from the government for caregivers who attend courses, I think we can think about it, work on it, and come up with a solution. I hope I answer your question. It's very difficult to be a caregiver, but you are doing it out of love, out of compassion, out of care. And you will be highly regarded by people who know you if you look after your loved ones well. Thank you. Stephen, back to you.
Right, the next question here is something related to the previous question. How can we tell a difference whether a person is having real dementia or faking it, as some are seen as attention seekers? Is such a person suffering from personality disorders rather than dementia?
Okay, very good. Before I answer that question, I want to tell you the difference between, it's not faking, it's called pseudo-dementia. Pseudo-dementia is not faking dementia. Pseudo-dementia is a depressed elderly who, because of the depression, cannot remember things, forgetful. So when you treat the depression, the dementia will go, and that's called pseudo-dementia. If you understand this concept, it's a depression that makes them demented. So treat the depression, their dementia will go away. So it's called pseudo-dementia. Unlike real dementia, where you really have a demented patient, not depressed, but clearly demented. There's no depression for you to treat. It's just you have to treat the depression. One 93-year-old lady came with 2 daughters to see me a few weeks ago. The first thing she did when she came to the clinic is, 医生我要10，给我10，打一支针给我10。Just give me an injection and make me die. I asked the 2 daughters, how is your mother's memory? Oh, very good. Very good memory. So 93 doesn't mean you're demented. 93 means no dementia, but very depressed. So depressed until she doesn't want to live. She just wants to die. That's an example of pseudo-dementia due to depression, or just depression and forgetfulness. So you treat the depression, the suicidal thoughts will go away. So I gave her antidepressant. She took for a few weeks, and a few weeks later, I say, how do you still want to die? No, 不要死了，我孙这样多要死做什么? So that's when the depression is lifted. Don't ever think that a 93-year-old lady cannot have depression. Don't ever think that because they live until 93, they are very wise old lady, therefore no depression. I think that's a myth. That is a wrong thinking. This lady, not demented at 93. And again, another myth, just because you're 93, you must be demented. No, you're 93 doesn't mean you need to be demented. Recovered after a course of antidepressant. So that is pseudo-dementia of a depressed patient. Treat the depression, the pseudo-dementia will go away. Now it's faking dementia for attention seeking. That is a different ballgame. And the questioner, I suspect, is a psychologist. She already answered the question. Could it be personality problem of this person who faked dementia? So it is, what kind of personality? People who are attention seeking, people who are very dependent on others. Although they're 80, they can be independent some of the time, but most of the time they want people to take care of them, say nice things about them, love them, sayang them. So when attention is not given, then they'll come up with problems. Ayah, I have pain here. Ayah, I cannot eat well. Ayah, I cannot sleep well. Ayah, ayah. So attention will automatically be given to them. And some of the symptoms cannot be proven. If I tell you I have headache, you can't see my headache. But if I tell you I have fever, you can measure my temperature. Right? You can hear my cough. You can see my tremors. But if I tell you I have headache, you can't see my headache. If I tell you I have chest pain, you can't see my chest pain. So these are examples of attention-seeking behavior. And they can fake memory problem. I cannot remember. This morning, what did you eat? No, I cannot remember. What did you eat last night? Oh, I cannot remember. Because they want you to pay attention to them. So how do we know? We have to see a professional to make sure that we're not ignoring underlying depression that caused the pseudo-dementia. We're not ignoring personality problem. And thirdly, make sure it is not a real dementia. Don't just blame the personality. I think it's a personality. I think it's a personality. Actually, you are missing a dementia. Whatever it is, these three possibilities must be ruled out by a professional. I hope I've answered the question, Stephen.
Oh, very good. Last two questions for the evening. Now, there are a lot of fake news during COVID-19. We feel stressed about this fake news. So how do we fight stress due to all this fake news that's spreading around?
Very good question. The first thing I do for myself is if I can't handle, I don't see. And I tell myself, if I don't see, do I lose anything? If I don't lose anything, so be it. And if it's important enough, people will call me. People will email me. People will make attempts to reach out to me. If they think this is affecting Dr. Ang, let Dr. Ang know. So you get real news from real friends. If you cannot handle fake news, you can avoid looking at it for one whole day. It won't affect you. But if you can't avoid, if you are the type that must see fake news, then learn to contain the fact, you need to have contain fake news. This is a virtual container, but I'm showing the physical one. Try to learn to contain fake news, put it aside. I told you in mindfulness training, in order not to worry, we have options, we have container. Contain the problem if you cannot close the problem. So sometimes when you read something, you're not sure whether it's fake or not. Put in a container, put it aside in a virtual mind, virtual container in your mind. Then as things unfold, you would then realize whether it's fake or not fake. Because when you first see, you do not know. You suspect it's fake. It could be real. So you put in a container, contain the fake news until it's proven that it's not fake. And if it's proven it's fake, it won't affect you. And make sure you close properly. Make sure you close the container properly, right? And put it aside. Put the container aside. Okay? So that you go on with your life to handle other things in your life. You cannot allow a fake news to dwell in your mind. Remember, affect your present. In mindfulness, the present is very important. You don't want to worry about, is this news fake? Is this news not fake? Then you're worrying about the future. So contain fake news, put it aside. Sometimes you can write it down. You suspect this is fake news. Put it one side, write it down. Then as things unfold, whether it's fake or not, you would know. You can't handle, don't read. If it's important enough, people will inform you, keep you informed. This is my approach to fake news because it's too much. We have a simple brain, but we are bombarded all the time. In my introduction, I say we're all stressed. Stress is a fact of life, but don't make it a way of life. I'm giving this webinar, conducting this webinar now. My email is coming in. all coming in, but I contain, I put one side, I give you 100% attention because I want to make you learn from this webinar. So I give you 100%. If I keep worrying about the email, if I keep worrying about what is going to happen later, if I keep thinking about my dinner, which I haven't taken, then I won't give you the 100%. That's the meaning of mindfulness. So fake news, practice mindfulness. Contain it if you can't handle. Thank you very much. Stephen, all back to you.
All right, so now we have the last question for the evening, which is the very interesting question. Now we're in phase 2 of the so-called circuit breaker, post-circuit breaker. And do you think the current voters who are sitting on the fence feel stressed to make a correct choice of candidate for any election during this COVID-19 situation?
Wow, interesting. So the question is, do people under stress vote opposition or vote the ruling party? We will know on 10 July, evening of 10 July, we will know. And that's why we are going all out. Our ground campaign, our electronic campaign, we are going all out. We cannot assume that the traditional way of gaining votes would work. That would be the door-to-door, your walkabout. Even your walkabout is curtailed. You have to wear masks, you have to practice social distance, and not more than 5 campaigners at one stretch. As I said, we are all going in with one hand behind our back, and it's not going to be easy, but we must try for the sake of our children and our grandchildren. We want 2/3 in parliament. We have a lot of ideas. We want to contribute. We want to make this nation an inclusive nation, not an exclusive one, not them versus us. It's all of us together as part of a nation contributing ideas, not them against us, right? Or us against them. So back to the question, how do we persuade this middle ground people, the swing voters? COVID-19 will be a test bed, a kind of experiment for sociologists and political scientists. Whether under stress, how do people behave? The traditional view is that they look for security under the incumbent. They feel safe with the incumbent because the incumbent got 61 years track record. Opposition, no track record. But we are not asking to govern the nation. We are asking to have 2/3, 32 seats, 1/3 majority. And surely, if the fence sitters can think, they are not forming the government, give it to them. Maybe they have brighter idea in coping with the COVID-19 crisis. And maybe with 32 in parliament, the incumbent will be very careful when they impose rulings or come up with laws, or when they have measures, when they introduce measures. They will think of the 32 in parliament. Every time they make an announcement, they think of, in parliament, they're going to face 32 alternative parties MP who will question them, put them on their toes. In my press conference, I say, you look at New Zealand, you look at Taiwan, you look at South Korea, they have very strong opposition. So the ruling party got to think twice before they do anything. They have to think of how to answer the alternative parties in parliament. PAP government is always very proud to say we are unique in doing things. We are uniquely Singapore. We have COE, we have ERP, we have NCMP, we have NMP. Uniquely Singapore. Only Singapore has got GRC also. GRC. Everywhere is SMC. In Singapore, you have GRC. At one stage, worse, mega GRC, 6-member GRC. Now they wake up and say, why you need such a big GRC to bring a minority into parliament? A 3-member GRC, you can bring 1 minority in. So it's a lot of illogical logic or illogic, illogic, or illogical logic, which is very frustrating and bad for mental health. Right? It's very bad for mental health when there's no clarity of values. No clarity of values. Suddenly you wake up, oh, we need an Indian, we need a non-Chinese president. And then at the same time, we don't need a non-Chinese prime minister. We're not ready the non-Chinese prime minister. So people are very confused. No clear values, no clear principles. So swing voters, please wake up, give us a chance to tell you that don't worry, Singapore will always be there. The civil service will be there, the police will be there, the military will be there. The PAP has fewer seats, that's all. Instead of 90%, maybe now they have 66% of seats. And they won't crumble. Maybe they work harder. Maybe next round, they will shine even better. So COVID-19 make people compare the PAP government with other government and see how they perform versus other government. Of course, you cannot include the West because the West is a different ball game. We're talking about Asian. We compare apples and apples, oranges and oranges. Even Vietnam, they handled the whole thing quite well. A very simple example, transparency is a value, transparency. You tell us today we have 235 cases among the foreign workers, but you never tell us how many you tested. So the 238 could be out of 1,000 tested. That's a very high number. But if it's out of 10,000 tested, then it's a very small number. So it's not about absolute, it is about percentage. Dr. Fauci, advising President Donald Trump, said it very clear. It's not an absolute figure we're looking for. It's the percentage that we are worried about. How many you test and how many are found to be positive. That is the percentage we are to be worried about. Not absolute. Absolute tells me nothing. And today we have 5 community cases. So it's not zero, it's not zero. So don't ever think that we're safe to have election. But what to do? They are very in a hurry to get a mandate. So the swing voters, you ask yourself, are they interested in your life or your health or their own fresh mandate? Stephen E., back to you.
Right. That wraps up this evening session. Ladies and gentlemen, we have answered most of the relevant questions. Thanks to everybody who contributed the very good questions. And thanks to Dr. Ang for giving such good answers. We have a wonderful session this evening. It's recorded and live at Facebook. The content is so interesting that a book can be written from it actually. So Dr. Ang can consider writing a book out of what we discussed this evening.
Stephen, another booklet. I'm not ready for a book.
You can do an ePDF book, that can be easily distributed. Yeah. All right, so you may subscribe to Dr. Ang's social media platform through www.angyongguan.com to get the latest news from him. Let's look forward to a great weekend ahead. See you next time and cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.